Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to today's video. Today, I'm gonna go over chest opening tier list. I know about like 5, 6 years ago over COVID, this was a big thing that a lot of the new, well, not new, popular streamers, content creators now they made opening tier lists, but a lot's changed in the past 6 years, especially in the game of chess. So I figured I'd make an updated tier list. Now, for this video, I'm probably gonna make just one general tier list that's more tailored towards beginners, but I'm also going to go over what I think on my own opinion of what would be helpful at my level. So this video is really for anybody from beginner level 2, I'd say about 2700 online. Maybe who knows, if you're a grandmaster, maybe you'll find some help with this, hopefully. I don't know. But I'm just going to go over the tier list. And I'm going to go through the move orders, basically showing you what each opening does and the ideas of each opening. And I'm going to rank them in a tier list. Now, I have two tier lists pulled up, so I'm going to be placing them in either one. And this is also just a tier list from Gotham Chess. So, first things forward, we have the Accelerated Dragon. Now, I'm a big critic of the dragon, just to show you what the dragon looks like. The normal dragon typically looks like something like this, where the idea is you basically want to get an open Sicilian, and then you're going to push your pawn to g6 with ideas of fianchettoing your bishop and targeting the d4 square in this long diagonal. Now, the Accelerated Dragon, on the other hand, is more just you do this, and then you're going to not do that. That's called the Nimzowitsch variation. But what you're going to do is, you're going to play after this normal Sicilian, where you put the knight on f3. You're going to put your knight on c6. Then white's going to play this pawn to d4, which is also the open Sicilian, and you basically play c takes, knight takes, and you play this move pawn to g6. Now, this is called the Accelerated Dragon variation. Now, at the beginner level, this is a very strong opening. I think the dragon is probably one of the best. If you must insist on playing the Sicilian as a beginner, it's very strong. Now, I don't recommend the Sicilian at all to beginners. In fact, I think that it should have a threshold of you need to be roughly, I would say, like 1200 ELO before you can even touch a Sicilian. Now, obviously, rules are meant to be broken. These are not binding rules. Play what you want. I'm not your father. Now, for a beginner, I'm going to put Accelerated Dragon in legit. Now, it's strong, super strong. You're going to win a lot of your games if you can understand the ideas of it. I'm just looking at it as pretty simple, fianchetto, and you're just going to put a knight here, target this knight. If trades, you just take back either way. In fact, if you take back, you just have a pretty equal game. If you play b takes, you don't want to play d takes because then queen takes, and then you're going to lose the right to castle. Now, I'm a big fan of this for beginners, so I'm going to put this in legit. Now, another tier list. This is for my own level, so if you're anybody from about 2300 to 2700, I would say the Accelerated Dragon it doesn't really work anymore. It has some playability. So if you want to play it, I'm going to just put it in really bro. It's not the best Sicilian, but it's not a terrible Sicilian. It's just going to end up being a pretty boring game. Now, back to the beginners. We have the Advanced Caro-Kann. Now, I'm a big hater of the Advanced Caro-Kann. Actually, you see there's a bunch of Caro-Kanns in this tier list. I'm just going to put them all relatively the same spot because I know that they basically go relatively the same spot. So, in fact, I'm just going to put the Caro-Kann as a big overview. Obviously, you have different cards. You have the Exchange. You have the Advanced. For the record, this is what the Caro-Kann looks like. You just play pawn to e4, c6, Caro-Kann. White typically responds with either pawn to d4 or this knight to c3, which is very mainline, sort of new edgy Caro-Kanns. But this is just the classic. This is the Advanced, the Exchange, where you can play this and have something like this. And that's basically all the Sicilians you're going to want to get as a beginner and even just in the high level. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Caro-Kann. However, as a beginner, it's very simple to understand. white typically only has really just two responses. You either play pawn to d4, or you're going to play this pawn or this knight to c3. So it's very easy to remember. And in fact, if you just spend like even 10 minutes learning just the ideas of the Carcassonne, you're going to win a lot of your games as a beginner. So that being said, I'm going to put the Carcassonne as a whole in, let's say, this is the Carcassonne, I'm going to put it in about Unbreakable. As a beginner, super strong. I think its ideas are easy to learn. Fundamentally, it makes sense. You know, you push your pawns, you're fighting for the center, and white is typically going to have not hard time, but if they're unfamiliar with it as a beginner, you're just going to crush. Now at my level, so at 2700, 25 to 2700, I think I said 23 to 2700 earlier, that's fine, same range basically. I think that the Carcassonne is not playable. Now, play what you want, like I said before, but I think that I was actually doing math the other day and I figured out that against the Carcassonne, I actually have about an 85% draw rate with it. And my win rate against the Carcassonne is about 9%. So of that 85%, the next 9% bringing it to 94%. I have a 9% win rate and a 6% loss rate. Now, that's why I don't like it. I think that sure I have a higher win rate, but it's just boring. You basically play for a draw most of the time. So play it if you need a draw or if you think you can win with it. But I'm going to put it at really bro. It's still going to be better than the Accelerated Dragon. I think the Accelerated Dragon is one of the worst Sicilian variations you can play as a high rated player. But I think that it has some ideas that are good. Now, back to the beginners board. Same thing with the Carcassonne. I'm just going to do the French defense as a whole now. Now, with the French defense, very simple ideas. It's kind of like a Carcassonne in the sense that you play pawn to e4, and black will respond with this pawn to e6. This is the French defense. Now here, white has a number of ways you can play pawn to d4, which is most standard, the normal variation. Black's going to push its pawn to d5. Now you can either play the advanced, which is this move, the exchange, which is you take, and now you have open e files. The kings are basically seeing each other. And you also have this very new, hyper modern opening that you see Magnus played recently, where you push your pawn here and you're going to want a fianchetto. And you can even do this the other way too. It's a nice fianchetto bishop. I think it's called the Ready Spielman attack. Spielman. And actually, this is the, I want to say it's the Hordes attack because it's kind of like the Hordes opening. But yeah, that's basically the responses. As a beginner, don't touch this variation where you fianchetto your bishop. Instead, just play just normal opening like this and decide what you want. I think that typically you don't want to play the exchange as white. In fact, I think the advance just makes more sense because you basically kill off the bishops. You have this idea in the French opening called the French bishop, which is that this late squared bishop is going to be very difficult to get out. I mean, sure, you're going to have to put it here and here, but that you just wasted tempo. Sorry, here and here, but if you put it here, then you just bring the knight on, you have an attack. Now you're going to have to want to break through, so some people like to just try to allow en passant to play this, knight takes, or they'll try to get some nice lines where they can get an open position after the advance. Now, as a beginner, it's very, I don't want to say good, but it's not too bad, if that makes sense. I think that typically the French defense as a whole, I think that you shouldn't be playing the exchange. In fact, the exchange is pure garbage at the beginner level. I will say though that I think the general French, you can put it at about legit. It's a legit opening. I think that it I would put it above the, actually, no, I'm still going to put it higher than the Accelerated Dragon higher, simply because it's very easy to understand. It's actually, no, I changed my mind. French is better. Accelerated Dragon can get tricky if you don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of lines, especially if you somehow come across a low-rated player who is deep in theory. Now, skipping these two, the advanced card and the advanced French, I just grouped them together in here. But we're going to this other board for more high-rated players. I'm going to put the French opening, French defense, I'm gonna put it at about. I feel like I'm just tossing everything to really bro, but I think I actually enjoy playing against the French a lot because I like to play these sort of edgy lines with it. So or I'd put it at the top of really bro. Like I think it's fun to play against. I think I've and definitely enjoy the games a lot because just seeing how people can deal with this French bishop is very fun to watch and fun to play against because you get all these like super nice like theoretical lines that people know and you just learn a lot from it. Now back to beginners. Next we have the Alpine Sicilian. I love the Alpine Sicilian. I know a couple of years ago many people thought it was terrible, but actually Magnus really likes playing the Alpine Sicilian. And in fact, the idea of the Alpine Sicilian is that you just want to go c3 and pawn to d4. That's his basic lines. You just want to get this uh, pawn to d4, and it's very straightforward. Now, as a beginner, like I said, you shouldn't be touching Sicilians, but in fact, I think that this is probably legit for a beginner. And actually, I'm going to demote this six-letter dragon to really bro, just because I'm thinking about it now and it can get super tricky if you don't know what you're doing. Alpine Sicilian makes sense. You have a general idea of what you're going to do. And back to this high level board, I'm going to say the same thing basically. The Alpine Sicilian, it goes in legit. It could go, you can make the argument for Unbreakable, but I think that past, like, unless you're Magnus, but past the master level, when you start hitting like GM, IM territory, it can get super tricky if you come across an opponent that it's not a forcing loss, but it's definitely not an easy win. Now, back to the beginner board, we have this Al-Johan's defense. I love the Al-Johan's defense. I think it's great. Now, just to show you what Al-Johan's defense looks like, basically play pawn to e4, knight to f6. Now, this looks terrible, especially as a beginner. Even at GM level, most players don't like this, but this is basically what you do, and you basically just want to go on a nice knight hunt with the white pieces, but at the end of it, you're basically going to argue that, okay, white pushed its pawns too far advanced, and now I have a knight that's going to be developed. So you're basically going to say, I have piece development over pawn development. So you have less center control, but you have one more piece, and you're going to basically argue that your tempo is stronger than white's overextended of the center. Now, as a beginner, don't touch this. Never touch the Al-Johan's defense as a beginner. Super difficult to play. Even at the highest level, but at my level, I will still put this in tricks only. I love it. In fact, I play it when I feel like it, which I play it like at least like 10 times a week in my own games online or against my friends. Now there's super tricky lines in it that can actually get you like super major advantages, but it's not really good. It breaks a lot of early chess principles, and in fact, like even just looking at this, say you're a beginner, you see your opponent do this, you're stuck in awe. Like you're gonna be like, okay, because the person who's playing this is gonna have some type of theory prep about this line, and they're gonna be just they're gonna know what to do. So it's basically something that makes your opponent think, but it's not going to be something that's really going to give you a super major advantage. Now, we have the Benoni opening. I love the Benoni, but it's sort of fallen out of practice, especially at the highest level. Now, as a beginner, right, I'm going to put the Benoni in tricks only. It's super fun, but I can't give it anything higher than simply tricks only. Now, just to show you what the Benoni looks like, basically, this is called the old Benoni, but the Benoni is basically, you're going to want to play this, and then you're going to have some sort of knight, and you have something like this. This is basically the Benoni. Now, the move orders can be swapped. In fact, I think typically, this might be the typical way that beginners learn it. Something like this. Actually, I don't really know. I don't think that's right. Just go back to this one. This is how I think the Benoni just looks better. I'm a big fan of how this looks. In fact, you want this knight here. You're going to play something like this. This just brings you the same thing, but I'm a big fan of how this will look as a beginner, or just not as a beginner. Sorry, I think I'm just a big fan of how this looks. It looks super nice. So as a beginner, it's tricks only because realistically, you play if you play this d4, c5, old Benoni. What's gonna happen at the beginner level is your opponent's gonna, with the white piece, is gonna be like, oh, free pawn, and they're just gonna take this, and now all of the prep you had will probably be going to waste as a beginner. Now, at my level, I love the Benoni, but modern engines have sort of killed it off. It's very easy to just get a drawn position with it. So I'm not going to give it anything more than legit. I think the Alpine Sicilian is a lot more legit than it. In fact, actually, I'm just going to put this at the top really, bro. I love it, but it's not, it doesn't have a lot of ideas with it. It's more or less just figured out. This opening is solved. I think Magnus played it in the Norway chess tournament this year, and I think he drew the game that he played the Old Benoni with and went to an Armageddon. This might have been against Rappert, I think, or no, Kaimar Vincent. Yeah, Rappert didn't play, but yeah, I think it's just really, bro. It's not anything too good, but not too bad. Back to the beginners, we have the Berlin defense. I'm a big fan of the Berlin defense. This opening was popularized in the, well, it wasn't popularized, but it was played a lot in the 1950s and 1960s. But then it sort of fell out of practice. Not a lot of people played it anymore. And then Vladimir Kramnik, when he played his World Chess Championship in the early 2000s, brought this line back. And you can say what you want about Kramnik. I don't care. But it's his contributions to chess, opening theory specifically, can't be denied. He did a lot for opening theory. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. But this is a very strong opening because it follows all the chess principles. You put your knights out in the center. You have a bishop, you have a knight out, and you're just gonna castle. You're gonna take this pawn, you can get this. In fact, let me just show you what this line looks like. You do something like this called the Rio Gambit, and the idea is basically that you're gonna have to put the knight back, and you do knight takes e5. And in fact, you can't take because if you take, you just have, you can play either rook takes, or actually I think d4 is better because now you push this, you basically pin this knight to the king. Now, what's going to happen is that at the beginner level, great opening. Easily one of the best openings you can play as a beginner, simply because it follows a lot of chess principles. Now, what does that mean? It means you put your knights in the center, you're going to push a pawn in the center, and you get a super nice position. But I think that it can lead to some rather tricky openings if you don't know what you're doing as a beginner. But as a beginner, it's going on legendary. If you can somehow master this opening as a beginner, you're gonna win a lot of your games. And when you eventually hit that 2,000 plus level, you're gonna be already set. The Ruy Lopez is the most popular opening at the all levels, really. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Bishop to B5. Played, I would say, in about 75% of the games, maybe even 90, but it's just very strong. Now, as a higher level player, easily legendary. One of the best openings you can play, no question about it, for all the same reasons. The Bongcloud, it's trash as both as a beginner and as an advanced player, but I love playing it. I think it's funny. You basically just do this. It's called the double Bongcloud. Uh, this is just the normal Bongcloud. You can do something like this, normal Bongcloud. Yeah, not much to say about it. You move your right to castle. You have no development. Black, if they don't do the double Bongcloud, they're gonna get a pretty even position. Or not even better position. Now, moving on, we have the Budapest Gambit. I actually think the Budapest Gambit is, it's it really goes in tricks only, and I'll show you why in a quick second. In fact, I think it's tricks only for. Nah, I'd put it in garbage for high level 2, but I'm gonna show you why in a second. Okay, so the Budapest Gambit, it basically goes like this. You basically want to go pawn to d4. Black responds with knight to f6. You play pawn to c4. Typical king's pawn opening. I said king's pawn, I meant queen's pawn. And you're going to play this move e5. And now, yeah, uh, after d takes e, this knight is supposed to go to g4, which is, yeah, it looks ugly. Now, at the beginner level, you can definitely catch some opponents off guard with it because you're going to have faster knight development. And once again, kind of like what I said with the what did I say with the Al Johans defense, you're going to say that white's overextended its pawns and you're going to target back and you're going to win this pawn eventually. And yeah, I think it goes in tricks only, not much to say about it. It's very solid chess principles, but if you can figure out how to play it as a beginner, you're going to get some nice tricks in it, but it's not good fundamental chess. That's simple as that. I'm going to leave it at that. Next, we have the Catalan opening. Now, as a beginner, I would strongly say don't touch the Catalan, but it teaches a lot of good chess principles. Now, when I say don't touch, I mean, just to go over it, the Catalan is this. It goes pawn to d4, knight to f6, pawn to c4, pawn to e6. White typically either goes knight to f3, or the classic Catalan is you push your pawn to g3. So pawn to g3, pawn to d5, knight to f3, and now something like bishop e7, bishop g2, and this is the closed Catalan. It's the most basic openings, and in fact, what happens is black's going to want to take this, and white's going to try to get this pawn back, and the idea of black is you're going to want to push your pawns to a6 and b5 to support this black pawn. Now, as a beginner, I would say you can play this if you want, but I would strongly recommend against it simply because while it teaches you strong chess principles, it's going to be a long, and I mean long grind to get this game down. And in fact, there's better openings as a beginner. Now, I love the Catalan, so in terms of for beginners, I would just give it a really bro to low legit because there's just better openings out there as a beginner. Like it's simple as that. You can play Catalan if you want to, but it's just know it's going to take a long time to win against your opponent. You're not going to be getting some like explosive fried liver attack as a beginner. Now, as a high level player, it's going to go in legendary. I love the Catalan. I played a ton. In fact, Magnus actually used it a lot in his 2021 World Chess Championship against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and it's such a good opening. It's even AlphaZero loved it. This was AlphaZero's preferred style of playing, by the way. It loved to play d4 because it couldn't find good play against e4, e5, or c5. So it loved d4. It loved getting a nice queen's gambit into a Catalan. It loved that opening. Now, moving on, we're going to go to this next opening, which is the closed Sicilian. So the closed Sicilian is very simple. You're going to play e4, c5, and now you're going to play this knight to c3. And black has number of ways to respond. Typically, you do knight to c6, and then white has number of ways. I think mainline says you play knight in g to e2, and now you can either do a nice a6 line. I think you can fianchetto if you want. Knight to f6. Now, as a low-rated player, as a beginner, it's okay. It's simple as that. It's okay. Now, why do I say it's okay? It's because it's just closing the position up. You're not going to get any pawn breaks relatively quickly. So just because of that, I'm going to have to give it a legit. Better than the Alpine Sicilian. Simple as that. But it's not, like when you get higher level, you're not going to come across the closed Sicilian as much. Simply because it's just super boring. Not a lot of people play it because the open Sicilian is far better. You get far open positions, you get much more tactics, and frankly the positions just look better. Now, as a high-rated player, I would put in really bro. I'd put it high really bro, but I don't think it quite reaches legit because it's just not good fundamentally with all the other Sicilians that are out there. There's a ton better Sicilians. Okay, next up on the list we have the Danish Gambit. Now, the Danish Gambit goes very simply like this. You go, sorry, you go e4, e5, d4, e takes, and then you push your pawn to c3. Now, this is called the Danish Gambit. I think you basically want to argue that you can do something like this, and now you're going to have faster development, a pawn up at the expense of 2 pawns. In fact, there's some lines where you basically want to put your bishop on, I think it's c4. You're going to allow black to take 3 pawns now, and you're going to say, okay, well, I have my bishops out now. This is one of the strongest pieces in the game. And you're basically going to say that, okay, I'm going to try to win with my early development. Now, at a beginner level, I think this is super strong. In fact, I'm going to put this in legendary because it's such a good opening. I've seen so many beginners just absolutely steamroll their opponents when they just learn how to do it. Because by simply having your development earlier, you limit the amount of pieces that your opponents are comfortable going with. And in fact, they're going to be scared to push a knight to f5 because you're going to say, okay, once takes, queen takes, and now you're just going to have some sort of long term. It just looks like a messy, but you're going to have some sort of annoying position with the white pieces. Now, at a more higher level, I'm just going to put it in about really, bro. Really, bro, low really, bro. I don't think it's good. In fact, I think it reminds me of a Smith-Morra kind of, which we'll explain later, but just a preview. Smith-Morra just goes e4, c5, pawn to d4, takes, here, and takes. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Danish. I think it's a fun opening, but I think it's just, you can't play it too well. Next up, we have the Dutch defense. Now, I'm a big fan of the Dutch defense. In fact, this was a part of my repertoire, I would say about 11 years ago now. Yeah, like 2015 to 2016, 2015, 2017, something like that. I played the Dutch a lot, and it's just super fun. To me, it's kind of like an inverse Sicilian. And yeah, it's just inverse Sicilian because Sicilian's e4, c5. But here we have d4 to f5. Now, I think the Dutch is super good at the beginner level. In fact, I'm going to say it off the bat. It's legit. Honestly, not their output. I would put it second highest for now. I think that the Dutch defense is super fun to play and super good as a beginner level. Now, even though it was part of my repertoire, I can't give it more than a high, really, bro. Now, I love the Dutch. I think it's such a good opening, but fundamentally, there's just better stuff out there, and it's not that good at the end of the day. Like, I think it's super, like, I will definitely play it still, but it just sort of felt fallen out of my repertoire, and the ideas of it kind of can get stale eventually, you know? Now, next up on the list, we have the English opening. Now, the English opening is typically you're taught to play e4 or d4, but the English is you play this pawn to c4. Now, no matter what black plays, you're basically in an English opening. In fact, the most common response is pawn to e5, which is basically reverse Sicilian. I know a lot of inverse reverse Sicilians, but it's reversed because instead of white having the pawn on e4, you have the black pawn on e5, and instead of the black pawn on c5, you have the white pawn on c4. And basically, this is the reverse Sicilian. Now, as a beginner, I would say just don't touch the English. Do yourself a favor, do not touch the English. I'm going to put it in garbage just because. Actually, I'd put it above Ali Johan's defense in garbage, but it's too difficult to explain at the beginner level. And I say that simply because it's a long positional game that realistically your opponents aren't going to do, so you're not going to get the benefits of playing the English, if that makes sense. The whole idea of playing the English is that you're going to basically go for this long positional grind. And if your opponent doesn't want to play that long positional grind, they can basically just make your life terrible when playing because they're not following the typical chess principles. I don't know why I said principles like that. Principles. Um, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to put it in garbage. Now, even at the higher level, I think the English it's I think it's low unbreakable. I think it's super strong, but it's definitely just it's boring and it's not super good. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good, but it's not super good. And I say it's not super good simply because, like I said before, there's just better stuff out there. So go for your mainline Spanishes. Go for even just QGDs, Queen Gambit declines, QGAs, Queen Gambit accepted. Any of those, and I think they're much stronger than the English. Obviously, the English is super good if you want to sit down and just play chess. Very good. Now, next up on the list, we have the Fool's Maid, just garbage. Bong Cloud's better than it. Fool's Maid, I'll just show you really quick. You basically want to go. God, I don't even remember how you do this. I think it's something like. Oh God, I think something like this. This. Oh, how do you do this again? Oh, it's something like. Is it this? This. Oh, wait. It's basically where you do something like this. This is Fool's Maid. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I forget. Yeah, this is how you do the Fool's Maid. It's not a good opening. Just don't touch it at any level. Obviously, first time playing, you might fall for it, but once you fall for it, you never fall for it again. The Four Knights game, very boring, very terrible opening as a high level player. However, at a beginner level, just makes a ton of sense. In fact, I'm putting it in legendary. Now, for the record, the Four Knights game is basically just this. So you have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop, knight, knight. Four knights a game, and now typically you're gonna have something like knight takes e4, where you have knight takes here, and you're gonna play this move d5, basically forking these pieces. Very strong as a beginner. You're gonna catch a lot of people off guard if you know how to play this opening. So just for that, it's going in legendary. But at a higher level, there's just better stuff out there. Good, makes sense, but it's not it's not good at the higher level. It sounds counterintuitive if I said it's good, but it's not good. It's good, but it's not great. Now, next up on the list, we have the Fred. Now, the Fred is interesting, and it's interesting for the following reasons. Now, the Fred basically goes pawn to e4, and you play your pawn to e5. Now, I think it's called the Fred, but I think it's actually called the Duras Gambit, if I want to be correct. Um, yeah, it's terrible. As simple as that. It breaks so many opening principles because you're basically exposing your king to long-term threats. You're basically saying if you short castle, sure you're gonna have the open F file, but you're gonna have to deal with the king getting checked and having to basically hide on this h8 square. So as a beginner, I'm gonna put it in tricks only. I'm sure you can get away with it as a beginner, but definitely as a high level player, it's just trash. I think it's yeah, it's just trash because it's not following principles and it's just building bad habits. Now you could get some nice games with it, sure, but I'm going to say that generally it's not good. Now, next up on the list, we have the fried liver. I actually love the fried liver. I used to play it a lot when I was younger, but the fried liver basically goes something like this, this, this. Is it this? But the idea is simple. Basically, you want to put your. I don't know why I went there. This. even just bishop c5, something like this. This is Gioco Piano. But no, this is more or less what you want with the fried liver. Now, obviously, this is called the Knight Attack with chess.com, but it's the ideas are simple. You basically want to get a quick and easy checkmate. Yeah, but it's you don't want to do that. It's a great opening. Because the idea is that once you have your knight here, you're gonna want to target this pawn that can't be taken, and you're just gonna fork the queen and the rook. And the idea is very simple, that if you do this, you take and you can't take back. Now, very nice, but more or less at the highest level, you kind of have learned now that this is sort of the best line, because if black knows this line, you're basically just in an ugly position with the way pieces. Sure, your pieces are out, but they're overextended. That being said, at the beginner level, it's breakable, but it's not super breakable, so it's going in unbreakable. At the higher level, it's not really bro. Honestly, I'd put it above the French and Caro, simply because you still follow good opening chess principles. But if you see somebody trying to pull aside, you just give them a look of like disappointment, like really, that's what you're doing. Next, the Gioco Piano. Gioco Piano. I love saying that opening. The Gioco Piano basically goes this. So Gioco Piano game. Next, you're gonna play something like D3, which is the Gioco Pianissimo, which is basically the little Gioco. It's called the Gioco Piano Italian Gambit. This is actually the first opening I learned to play with the white and black pieces, so it's special. It has a special place in my heart, and in fact, I think it's a fun opening. I think it's really fun, but it it's just difficult for beginners to play. So I'm gonna put in tricks only, high tricks only though. But at the higher level, I'm gonna put it in legit. I think it's a pretty fun opening. I think it's really good actually if you know what you're doing. But also, I prefer the Spanish over the Italian game. 9 times out of 10, I'll much rather Roy Lopez than just some Italian game. Now, next up on the list, we have the Grand Prix opening. Now, the Grand Prix opening is very fun because it's a nice response against the Sicilian defense. Now, basically, I'm going to show you the setup real quick. Basically, play e4, c5, knight to c3, and then you play this move pawn to f4. This is the Grand Prix attack. Very, very aggressive, but it cuts down on that the heavy theory in the open Sicilians, which actually, if you play like against a lot of club players or like even chess hustlers in New York City, you're either gonna play like these super aggressive openings to cut out your knowledge of the game. Now, as a beginner, it's really good. It's really good. So I'm gonna put it in legit. In fact, I'm gonna put it higher than the close Sicilian. But actually, I'm gonna swap. No, this is fine. But the Grand Prix is super good because what happens now, all like the mainline Sicilians, where you put your knight here, this, this. It's just it cuts down super fast these Grand Prix ideas. So I think it's really good at the beginner level, but at the higher level, it's really just goes into tricks only. It's yeah, it's a fun name, fun to play, but not good. Next up on the list we have the Grob. The Grob, very simple. You just play this pawn to g4. I think it's fundamentally agreed upon. This is probably one of the worst openings you can play, maybe next to f3. Actually, I would argue f3 is worse. The Barnes opening, simply because open king now. Yeah. Yeah, so simple, straightforward garbage. Better than Fool's Mate, but not by much. Yeah, very simple. Next up on the list, we have the Grunfeld. I love the Grunfeld, but yeah, Grunfeld basic idea. Use something like this. This is the basic Grunfeld setup. In fact, I think typically the main line is you play this, 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 this. Yeah. Obviously, I just swapped the move order up. This is the Grunfeld. I cannot stress this enough. As a beginner, do not touch this with a 10-foot pole. Even if you have an 11-foot pole, still don't touch it. It's super good, but it's super, super theoretical. Not even grandmasters understand this opening fully. Yes, as a beginner, it's garbage. In fact, I'm putting it worse on the Fool's Mate. Just don't touch this. I'd rather you get checkmate in 2 moves than touch this opening. But as a high level, it's going in legendary. I love it. I played so much. And the reason I played so much is simply because I used to play, just some side note lore, which we're going to get to later, but I used to play the King's Indian, the KID, a lot. And it basically got killed off by engines. Engines basically proved that there's good ways to defend against the King's Indian defense. And realistically sort of fell out of play at the highest level. It's a strong opening, still is strong, but it's not as good as it once was. So what had happened was I basically swapped my approach. Instead of playing my pawn on d6, I started playing pawn to d5, which is the Grunfeld. And the idea is that if you take, you're going to play something like knight f3 and take. And you look at this is called the exchange Grunfeld, but this is very, very difficult to play from both sides if you don't know what you're doing. You gave white a strong center, but you're going to fight for it indirectly with some nice fianchetto, some short castling, some bishop moves, maneuvers, some knights out, some queen maneuvers, fighting for the center indirectly and getting a nice strong attack all over the place. But that's why I love it. That's why I think a lot of high level grandmasters love it, because it reminds them of the King's Indian defense, which a lot of them grew up playing. But it's just better and more aggressive. So that's why I think it's good. But as a beginner, don't touch it. Please play the Fool's Mate before you play the Grunfeld. Next, the Hippo opening. To be honest, Hippo is terrible, terrible, terrible opening in chess, because it's just so bad. Because it's a structure at the end of the day, right? You basically want to have, in fact, I don't even know the move orders to get to it, but basically it's a structure. Let's see if I can remember how to do it. So the Hippo defense, it basically, actually, can I edit this board? Okay, either way, the Hippo defense, you basically, I'm just gonna play some moves. You do this, 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 this. This is the hippopotamus defense. It's just so stupid. But I mean, I've seen beginners play it. I've seen them get away with it. I've even seen this at higher levels. But if somebody played this, especially as a beginner and watching the game, I think they're gonna go really bro. But I'm gonna put it, honestly, I'm gonna put it middle of legit. And I'm gonna say that at the beginner level. Why? Because look at this. Sure, white has a nice strong center, but you look at the eval bar, it's minus 0.36. Now, obviously, I played random moves with the white pieces. Actually, it's kind of like Hippo defense in a sense, just inverse. Anyways, but the thing is that if you just play this KG setup, white's going to be the one that has to make the break. And if white doesn't know how to make the break, you're going to win. So that's why I think at the, that's also why it's called the Hippo defense, I think, because Hippos like to wait in the water and just look at you before they hunt you, I think. Something like that. I think I remember hearing that somewhere. But yeah, at a higher level, though, it's just, I'm gonna put it in tricks only, but I think you could get away with putting in really bro. I love Dao Yohun's defense, so I'm gonna keep it high of tricks only. But yeah, I think you get away with putting in a really bro, the Hippo defense. Next up on the list, we have the Italian game. Big fan of the Italian game. but fundamentally, it's not good. Now, when I say it's not good, it does not mean it's not objectively good. Objectively, it's good, but it's not a good opening in my opinion. And the reason is just play the Spanish. Spanish is much more classier, much more deeper in theory, and much more chance that you're gonna win. The Italian game just can get boring simply because you're just gonna play like a 4 knights maybe, or you're gonna get a 2 knights with something like pawn to d3, which is I think it's called like some bishops opening. I would say modern. Pawn to a6. I think c3 is the theory. I want to say bishop c5, which turns into mainline Gioco Piano, which I think is just the same thing as a Gioco Pianissimo. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, as a beginner, super strong. Easily in legendary. I don't care what anybody says. Easily in legendary. It follows basic chess principles. Going to teach you how to play the game. As a high-rated player, it's going in Unbreakable. It's good, not the best, but good, solid. I'll give it that. It's great. Next up is the Jerome Gambit. Now, I've seen the Jerome Gambit. I know its basic ideas, but I don't remember exactly how it goes. Now, let me see if I can just pull this up on the board. We need this real time. E4, E5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c. It's bishop c4, bishop c5. Oh yeah, bishop takes f7, king takes f7. I think it's knight takes e5 check, knight takes e5, queen to h5 check. Yeah, okay, this is the Jerome Gambit. The idea is that you're just gonna play here, but I mean, you can say, okay, what if I block the check this way? You're just gonna lose this. I think it's not good. Simple as that. Jerome Gambit, tricks only. If you're a beginner, you can play it and get away with it. By all means, do it. But I think Fred's better. I think it's just pure trash. Oh, did I not put the? Oh no, I did. Yeah. Jerome Gambit's pure trash. Honestly, yeah, Fool's Mate's still better than Jerome Gambit. I don't care what anybody says. It's terrible. Next is the King's Gambit, which is basically pawn to e4, pawn to e5, pawn to f4. King's Gambit. Probably the second. No, I'm not going to say that. It's a famous opening, but it's famous for all the wrong reasons. It's not good because simply you're not going to get a good advantage with it. You weaken your king side, you just weaken everything. I think that it was good a couple hundred years ago, especially when Morphy was alive. But as a beginner, it's going really, bro. You can play it. It's definitely a strong opening, but I think Hikari's played it online a bunch. But as a high level player, it's just going in garbage. It's maybe high garbage, but yeah, because you just expose your king early. You have a pawn that's eventually going to come down. You're going to tear up the king side. There's just a bunch of ways to just basically steamroll the King's Gambit, and it's not good. That's simple as that. I'm going to leave it short and sweet. Next up on the list, we have King's Indian. Love the King's Indian. Once again, I'll just show you how it goes. I already told you the story, but it's such a fun defense. I wish computers didn't kill it off, but on the bright side, I get to play the Grunfeld now. Yeah, and while I'm at it, I'm just going to show you the King's Indian attack because it's the same thing. Just essentially, you're doing the inverse. So you're basically doing something like this, this, this. King's Indian attack. I think it's called the Sicilian variation because you have your pawn on c5. Love it. But as a beginner, King's Indian defense, going in legendary. Super easy, super straightforward to memorize. It's a system at the end of the day. You're fianchetting your bishop, you're pushing a pawn to your d3 square or your d6 square. Very straightforward, very good opening. But it's no downsides as a beginner. Just play the King's Indian. If you don't know how to play against d4, play the King's Indian. Super simple to understand. Obviously, once you get to a higher level, it's going to start to get phased out slowly, and you're going to see that even in your own prep. You're going to try to do it, and you're going to be like, okay, I need to switch up my approach, and eventually you're going to opt for different things like, no, no, Nimso, Bogo, Medusa Gambit, something like that. I'm I guess I'll just do the Kings in the attack while I'm at it. It's going in legit, high legit as a beginner. It's super good. Actually, I might maybe not top. It might go in the middle simply because you're basically waiting for your opponent to attack and get boring. You can sort of get antsy and make mistakes because you're just waiting for your opponent to do something. Can blunder, make a inaccuracy. So good, but not the best. As a high rated player, King's Indian, simply for the history, I want to put in legendary. It's not legit. It's much stronger than legit, but it is breakable. However, I'd put it top of unbreakable simply because it's such a classy opening. Like I see this and I love it so much. It sounds so weird, but I wish computers can kill it off. Things in the attack, it's going in legit. I can't say more than that. It's a system. It makes sense. I love Fianchettoing bishops. I love this. Fisher loved this. Most players I know, I think even Kasparov used to maybe. I know QIA Queen's Indian attack, QID Queen's Indian defense. Basically the same thing, just on the other side. But it's yeah, it's such a classy opening. But it just makes sense. You get a nice. You're just gonna fight for the center indirectly, and you're gonna have like patience. That's all you need. Super straightforward. Next up on the list, we have the Latvian Gambit. Now, the Latvian Gambit is, it's okay. I'm not a big, to be honest, not a big fan of the Gambits in chess, but just to show you how it goes, it basically goes e4, e5. Now, here, most common response, knight to f3, and now your place move f5, Latvian Gambit. You see, computer really hates it. It already gives white a plus 1.21 advantage. As a beginner, as a beginner, you could get away with it. You get away with it as a beginner, but it's really going in tricks only. Honestly, I'd put the Benoni above it. Same thing as a high rated player. It's just going in garbage. I put it in here. Better than Fred. Actually, Boncloud's worse than it. But the reason I say this is because, like, look at it. You basically just like this. You can get something like this, and yeah, it's not good. Like, fundamentally, you can look at this and be like, okay, but then this, you can have something like Queen H5 check. You have to play. You either play G6, but if you play G6, you play F takes. So you have to do this King to E7. And something like Queen H4 check, Knight F6. I think this is fine. And something like D5, 1 to D3 takes, Bishop takes, yeah. But yeah, it's terrible. Next up on the list, we have the London system. This is the London system, Accelerated London, and the idea is that you're just going to get a nice London bridge setup going. Something like this. You can either play knight bd2 or bishop e2. I've always been a big fan of this. I think computer doesn't really like it. Something like queen b6, rook b1, c. Not that. I think it's c takes is a theory with something like bishop d7, pawn c3, short castles, bishop d3, bishop d7, something like a4, I think. That's a line I remember learning a while ago. Super simple to memorize. It's going in legendary. Honestly, above Berlin, London system, it's going in unbreakable. I love King's Indian more though. But yeah, I know people like to bash it. The Bota sisters like to bash the Bota sisters because of it. I think it's super good. Magnus played it. It's super strong. I'm not a big fan of it, simply, but the idea is simple. If you get control of the e4, e5, e6 squares with the London, you're gonna win the game. Simple as that. It's super classy. It's obviously a slow game, but it makes sense what you're doing. Follows chess principles. Even in some lines, you can get a nice long castle going and just get a nice kingside attack. Super straightforward. Simple as that. Next up on the list, we have the martial attack. Now, let me take some of my water because the martial attack is a long, long line. Could you just hear that ASMR? My gulps because of how long this line's gonna be. Pause. Okay, here you go. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop B5, pawn A6, bishop A4, knight F6, castles, bishop to E7, rook E1, pawn to B5, bishop B3, short castles, pawn to C3, pawn to D5, takes, 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 takes. Now here you can either play pawn to C6, or actually I think Hikaru likes this one. It's modern variation. I'm a big fan of the original martial attack. I think it looks super cool. This, but the idea is super good. As a beginner, don't waste your time memorizing this line. I can guarantee you nobody at 800 level is memorizing, what is this, like 20 something lines of, no, it's only like 11 lines, but the martial can go easily into like 20, 30 plus lines. But nobody at the beginner level is memorizing 12 plus lines of martial theory. So it's going in garbage. We're right there with the Grunfeld. Do not touch it. It's just a waste of your time, really. It's not even like the Grunfeld. With a Grunfeld, you know you're gonna get a lost position because it's terrible at the beginner level. Martial attack, I love it. It's going unbreakable. It's sort of fallen out of practice though, simply because people with the black piece are too scared to play it. I think Magnus loves this opening, but nowadays what happens is instead of playing this C3 line, people are playing this line, which is the anti-martial. I think Kasparov popularized this in a lot of his games, but it's such a fun opening to play, but it's realistically nobody's going for that. People are, even if you play this, people are going for this. Just a closed Morphe defense. Nobody's playing this anymore. But if you play it, you're gonna get a ton of games. I think Wesley So actually loves the martial attack too. I think he tries to play it a lot. He's probably like one of the last people I know that will play it. Next up, one of my favorites, the Knight of Sicilian. E4, C5, knight to F3, pawn to D6, pawn to D4, takes, knight F6, knight C3, pawn to A6, the Knight of Sicilian. For the record, after this, pawn to A6, white has about anywhere from 16 to 18 moves that have been tried, tested, and verified as being perfectly good and fine. None of them will give white a guaranteed loss, an objective loss. Some of them will give it a more equalized position, but still white will have some advantage with it. This is the opening you play if you want to play for a win. If you want to play strong chess, you play this opening. Simple as that. As a beginner, don't touch this. I'm putting this in garbage. It's going right there with the Grunfeld and martial attack. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, why am I doing this? Basically, if you look at what's in garbage and what's in legendary, because this is going right up there with Grunfeld, you're seeing that a lot of the time. It's not, it's like inverse, but the reason why is because who at 800 is playing mainline Sicilian theory? A lot of people there are like seeing these videos like, oh, well, Magnus played the Knight of Sicilian, so I must play the Knight of Sicilian. They're not gonna like listen to like these recommendations by people like me, Gotham, Hikaru, so on and so forth, where they're like, play the Khan if you're a beginner, play these sort of gambits. They're gonna be saying like, oh, I want to play like Magnus, I want to play all his openings. Magnus can play these openings because he knows how to play these openings. It's gonna make me sound like a like not a good person when I say this, but you guys are not good enough at 800 elo to be playing these openings yet. I'm saying the word yet. Once you reach, like, I would say 1800, you can start thinking about these different types of Sicilians. If you insist on playing the Sicilian, play the Dragon. Don't play the Sveshnikov. Don't play the Najdorf. Don't play the Rossolimo. Don't play these mainline Sicilians because you don't know what you're doing yet. You need to build up those fundamentals playing normal chess. Then you can move on to the Najdorf, because the Najdorf, you're playing a waiting move. You're basically saying, okay, white's never going to get their pawn, their knight on b5. That's what you're basically saying with or like even a bishop on b5. That's what you're saying with their Najdorf. Super strong, but you have to build up your fundamentals first before you can touch it. If you just spend like 10 minutes learning how to play the Carcassonne, learning how to play like the Dragon Sicilian, you're going to easily hit like 800, 1800 ELO in a couple of months. I guarantee you that, as long as you stick to stick to the game. You can't just be playing like 1 or 2 games a day and expecting to hit 2000 in like 2 weeks. It's not how it works. But yeah, it's simple as that. It's a long spiel, but I need to say that. Next up on the list, we have the Nimzo Larsen attack. I have mixed feelings about the Nimzo Larsen. I love it, but at the same time, I hate it simply because it can get quite tricky. Now, I'm going to show you what it is. Here, Nimzo Larsen, b3. Simple as that. If you've seen any of my games, again, especially against my friends, I love playing this simply because I love these hyper modern openings. But at the same time, like, you have to know what you're doing. It's very aggressive because you're not following basic chess principles. So as a beginner, I'm putting it low legit. As a high rated player, honestly, going in the same spot. Yeah. It's super fun to play, but you just gotta be careful with it. Simple as that. Next up, Petrov defense. I know I'm starting to speedrun these, but it's very straightforward. A lot of these openings, just listen to the advice and learn. Petrov's defense. This is main line. I think it's something like this. Knight to f6. It's I think it's like the French attack. Yeah, at the beginner level, Eric Rosen loves his Stafford Gambit. I forget how that goes. Play the Stafford Gambit as a beginner, but once you reach a certain point, people are gonna know how to counter it. Petrov attack going in. It's probably going right next to the Dutch actually. I know Fabi loves playing it, but now the Petrov attack, the highest level, it's just going in really bro. It's going in really bro because it's basically a forced draw after a certain point. It's not as good as it once was. Jan plays it a lot too, I think. Actually, no, I don't think this was the one he. Yeah, no, this wasn't the one he played against Hans. Philidor defense. Not a big fan of it. Why am I not a big fan of it? Because it's. Oh no, that's the park. Sorry. I played a. Actually, let's just do the perk right now. Where's the perk? Yeah. This is the perk defense. It's kind of like a King's Indian attack, because you can get the Fiend Ketoed. This is a modern defense, but you can get something like this. I think knight to c, or not knight to f3, knight to c3. Here, perk main line. As a beginner, once again, this is going right next to the King's Indian, simply because it's the same ideas. It's going up there, super strong, super good opening. As a high rated player, I'm putting in legit. Now you're probably thinking like, okay, well if the King's Indians and Unbreakable has a perk so different, I think it's just better openings. Obviously after a certain point it looks the same, but it's I don't know, I've just never been a fan of the perk. Even the name just irks me kind of, perk. Like the perk defense. It would sound so weird, but I don't like it. It's not. I think there's just better stuff you can do. Now, next up, we have the Philidor defense, which I tried doing, but I ended up going for a perk. E4, E5, knight c3, pawn to d6 is the Philidor. Good, but it's overanalyzed at the top, so it's just going in really bro. Or with the Petrov for high level. For more beginner openings, I'm gonna put in garbage. It's yeah, it's just not good. It it's old school style of playing chess. You need your knights out basically. If you're gonna play pawn move on the second, if you know you're gonna play pawn move on your second move, play better opening, please. Yeah, simple as that. Next up, Polish game. Very simple. Polish. I actually really like the Polish. But as beginners, it's going in tricks only. Simply because you're not fighting for the center. You're gonna basically say, okay, I have a fianchetto, sort of. But yeah, it can get scary. In fact, I think it's whoa there. I put the Polish in I put the Polish in sorry, I don't know what did happen with my OBS. I put the Polish in tricks only. It's gonna go about the same for Grandmaster level. Let me just take a sip of my water before I continue with the Ponziani. That was a really big gulp. If you guys could hear that. Okay, next up Ponziani. Basically e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, pawn to c3. Ponziani opening, very straightforward. Now, I've tried so hard to like this opening, but it's just not good. It's going in really bro for beginners. I really want to like it. I've tried so long to try to make it work. It just looks so cool. It looks very edgy. It reminds me of like an Alpine Sicilian, except you never played c5. But I can't justify it. It's going in garbage. Portuguese Gambit. I always forget how this goes. Let me. See. We're gonna do this real time. We're gonna look at. We're gonna try to remember how to play this in the real time with once again. All these openings I completely forgot about. I think it's e4, e5. Is it bishop to e5? Yeah, Portuguese opening. It's it's okay, but typically you don't want to play bishop moves where it can be easily attacked by a pawn. So yeah, it's just gotta go garbage. It's gotta go garbage. Same thing here, just pure garbage. And I say that because if you can do this, play this bishop's opening much better. It's like an inverse London, but this is just terrible. And you're saying, oh, but it's gonna be attacking. No, it can't. You play pawn takes. And if queen takes, you play this, and you're not Magnus Carlsen. You're somebody on Levy's Guess the Yellow. Then you do something like this, this, and now you do this, and then you play queen takes f8 check, d7. You play bishop takes a8, and you're just see how deadly this can be, especially at a beginner. So yeah. Next up, Queen's Gambit. Love the Queen's Gambit. This. Super nice. Traditional Queen's Gambit also just goes this. This is the QGA, Queen's Gambit accepted. This is the Queen's Gambit declined. You can also decline it another way, which is this. It's called the Marshall Defense, though. I've seen people try to do this, the trigger on. It's okay. Queen's Gambit. It's going in legit for beginners, simply because actually we can put unbreakable, low unbreakable though. If you memorize like a couple openings with this as a beginner, you're gonna win 90% of your games. 100% guarantee you're gonna win a majority of your games. As a high rated player though, I'm gonna have to put it in. I want to put it in unbreakable, but it's got to go high legit. It's just better alternatives. The Queen's Gambit into something like the Queen's Gambit into a Catalan so much stronger than traditional Queen's Gambit. I think even Magnus, he played in his, what was it, 20, his first time playing Yon, he played the Queen's Gambit a lot. Second time he played the Catalan a lot, I believe. That doesn't sound right, actually. He might have played the Catalan and Queen's Gambit the same year he played Yon for 2021. That sounds more right. Next up on the list, we have the Ready, which is just this. And typically just something like this, which just becomes the King's Indian attack. But yeah, like I think typically you get something like this. It's called the Ross Gambit. You take, I actually didn't know it's called the Ross Gambit. But yeah, so the English. This just turns into an Indian game. But yeah, the Ready is basically this. Ready is used a lot to transpose into different openings, but it's good, really good, especially at the beginner level. It's going unbreakable. It just follows good chess principle. Here, I'm gonna put it also in about unbreakable too, but I would have to put it on the lower end. Honestly, Italian would go above it too, simply because it's a little tricky. Fundamentally, it's a little tricky. Can't deny it. Next up, mainline Spanish, the Ruy Lopez. Already went over this, e4, e5, knight here. And once again, I'm just sort of blitzing through these last openings because I already explained there, like some ideas earlier, I alluded to a lot of them. So if you want more in-depth breakdowns on specific openings, just let me know in the comments. Mainline Spanish, super, super good. Most popular opening, probably. This is, as a beginner though, it's going in legit simply because what are you doing memorizing mainline Spanish? Seriously? I used to know this person and she memorized the Ruy Lopez. Um but I was just able to beat her every time in chess. In chess, let me clarify. In chess. Um I was able to destroy her Ruy Lopez super easily because that's all she played. She played very straightforward mainline Ruy Lopez, but she didn't understand the ideas behind it. And it's just super difficult to play if you don't know how to play the Spanish fundamentally. It's super tricky, but that being said, at the highest level, it's legendary. Next up, we have the Scandinavian defense. That went super somber for a second. Uh, Scandinavian, it's e4, d5 takes here. Scandinavian defense. I know Levy loves the Scandinavian defense. Levy Rosman, Gotham Chess. Lots of people love the Scandinavian. I've never been a big fan of it. But at the beginner level, it's going on legendary. Simple as that. Away just gets a nice advantage, but with the buy piece, you have like an active queen early, and even you don't have to put the queen, but you can put the queen here. You can't put the queen here because you just lose your queen, but you can put your queen if you want here. This is also back. You just play knight f3, and now you have to slide back something like, I think queen a5 maybe. Yeah, queen a5 here. You want to put your pawn here, return back, something like that. But I've never been a big fan of Scandinavian. I'm putting in really, bro. I hate it so much. Anytime I play it, I actually just like I physically like roll my eyes, and I'm pretty sure you can hear it. Next up, the Scotch. I hate the Scotch. That's a Vienna, but no, this is the Scotch. Or this is Scotch. Yeah, this is Scotch. I played everything but the Scotch. Let's go with the Scotch. This. I think Queen. It's Queen f6. Queen f6, and if takes, it's knight takes. It's good at the beginner. Really good at the beginner. Um, but not legendary. It's going unbreakable. It's going in unbreakable simply because, like, look, you just follow basic chess principles. You push 2 pawns to the center, you have a knight out, like super strong, straightforward. The higher level, it's going in legit. Low level legit though. It's better stuff. Like, why are you like 2700 playing the Scotch? Why aren't you playing like a mainline Roy Lopez? Simply to catch your opponent off guard, and it's a good opening. Sicilian defense, fundamentally, Sicilian defense is this e4, c5. Love the Sicilian defense. However, as a beginner, it's going in really bro. The reason being, unless you're playing these sort of Sicilians I vouch for, like the close Sicilian, the Alpine Sicilian, why are you, as an 800 player, playing the Sicilian? Obviously, play what you want. I'm not your parents. I don't care what you play. But it's better to play just better openings. There's fundamentally better openings because, like I said, you're not developed yet in chess to understand how to reap the ideas of the Sicilian defense to their full benefits. So, as a beginner, I'm putting it in just really, bro. Stick to what you know, stick to what you can play. If you can somehow manage to play a Knight of Sicilian at the lower elo and you make it work, by all means, tell me to shut up and I'll do it. But I'm just saying, more generally, like generalizing the Sicilian defense to the lower elo, I would say genuinely avoid it. Generally avoid it. Sicilian defense, going in legendary. It's got to go in legendary. I love the Sicilian defense. It's so good. It's so good. But I don't like how broad this term is for the Sicilian defense. But it's I say that because you could easily play Sicilian this, and then you could play this, and all of a sudden you just play something like this, the Brussels Gambit, just guarantee lose for block for black. I think. Well, I'm losing my voice. Whoa, sounds weird now. Next up on the list, we have the Sicilian Dragon. I showed this earlier. E4, C5, knight. That's got it. Knight, pawn, takes. Here. Dragon. Bobby Fischer famously said sack, and storm the king side. However, at the beginner level, it's going about really bro. You could play it, but I'd be careful playing. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Giant Sicilian. Tricks only. Terrible opening. I agree a lot with what Fischer said. Obviously, I don't condemn it as much as he did, but it's okay. Simple as that. Next up on the list, we have the Slav. Slav is kind of like the Carcon, where you put the pawn on c6 against e4. Here you play d4, c6. And this is the Slav defense. And now some people like to do this, triangle system. This itself is the modern line. This is the triangle system. Very good. I call this Carcon Fiend. I'm putting it the same spot I gotta put the Carcon, but I'm putting it a little bit more. Like, these are interchangeable. It's interchangeable Carcon and Slav. I'm just gonna put it here because that's where I had it first. Slav at the highest level, I'm putting it probably with the Carcon too. Yeah. I can't, to me, I see no difference in them. Obviously, there's different ideas, especially with the triangle system, but I think it's solid. Not much to say. Follow basic chess principles, you get a solid opening. Smith-Morra, I said this earlier too. E4, C5, D4. Takes. And here, white has one, or black has one feeling. You either push it. Here, Vichy actually lost it. He pushed it and he lost. You can take. But yeah, I love the Smith-Morra. I think it's I want it to work so badly, but unfortunately just fallen out of, it's not good at the highest level. So for a beginner, I'm gonna have to put it at unbreakable. If you face an opponent that plays the Sicilian, by all means play the Smith-Morra and just roll him up, like steamroll him. At the higher level though, because Vichy lost to it, I have to put in legit. It's not played at the high level, but it's so fun to play. Next up, we have the Sicilian, sorry, not the Sicilian, sodium, which is just one knight a3 sodium attack. It's called the sodium attack because on the periodic table, sodium's periodic element is Na, Na3, knight a3, sodium attack. It's going in garbage because it's not for beginners, it's not teaching them good chess principles. And at the higher level, it's just going really, bro. You can make it work. I've seen people make it work. I've made it work. uh, yeah, simple as that. Stonewall. Stonewall is a setup. Now, what is a Stonewall? It's something like this. Where you basically just kind of like an inverse Slav. Or you can even do well, you can do this, this, this. Something like this. You just get a nice Stonewall set structure where basically you're gonna connect your pawns and you're basically gonna kill off one of your dark square bishops. In fact, uh what I like to tell people, and this is good chess principle, is that if you do something like this and you trade it off, because you trade off your dark squared bishop, immediately start pushing your pawns on the dark squares. Obviously, this is not the best move. Ignore what the eval bar says, but immediately what you should do is you should start just pushing all your pawns onto dark squares. Obviously, you should develop first, but it's just showing you what the ideas are. But if you somehow manage to replace your pawns on the dark squares, not all your pawns, but if you can get as much as possible on dark squares, is how you win. Because now you see these pawns cover the same spots where your dark squared bishop could cover at one point. In fact, if you watch my previous video, that's how I won a game. I accidentally misclicked and I just pushed my pawns, and my opponent wasn't able to break through it. And in fact, he ended up blundering, and I just ended up winning the game. So Stonewall, if you play that like right out of the gate, it's going really bro. So that's what I'm gonna put it for now. Or no, I'll put it low legit. Because if you can somehow transpose into it's going legit, if you can transpose into a different opening, or not a different, you can transpose into a Stonewall structure after you trade off your bishop, it's super strong. If you just play the Stonewall right out of the gate, you're just losing. Simple as that. Now, that's the end of the tier list. If you want me to go over any of these openings in detail and give you like all the ideas of it, that would easily help people reach at least 2,000. This is the low elo player. This is the high elo player. If you reached any of these and you want a full depth breakdown of it, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.